Hey there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We have a great show lined up for you today. Thanks for joining the OCmodcast, episode 6. We have a huge show lined up for you today. I got so much news. It's so much news, it's enough to choke a yak. And this is our yak news mascot. I think I'm going to call him Yakov, but he's our news choking yak. So I'm going to show you 13 new games that you can get for free, and I'll go over that with you later in the podcast. And I'm going to go over the new game releases this week. There's been an update to get more out of your DualSense controller on the PC, and I'll talk about that and everything that you didn't know that you could do with the DualSense. There could be more Xbox layoffs coming, but what's new with that? And of course, more info about when the Steam machine is coming out. All this and lots more, so let's jump into it. So first with the news. Did you know that Amazon is starting to sell the Steam Deck? It used to be a couple of years ago when the Steam Deck was out, you could only get it from Valve. You can get them on Amazon now, and they have some refurbished ones, it's the LCD models and stuff like that, and they are a little pricier. But if you absolutely can't get one, you can get them if you want to pay the Amazon tax. Let's see. So yeah, if you don't mind paying the Amazon convenience tax, you can get one. Let's see. The new game releases on Steam this week. There's Stitch. Let's see. There's Mecha Chameleon. Thank you for your application. That looks kind of interesting because you get to review resumes and reject people. Of course, The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to that. Dave the Diver in the Jungle content pack. There was something that was on earlier today? Oh, it came out earlier this week, Monday. Mole. I started playing through that a little bit, and it's a little bit disturbing. It actually even says so in the beginning that there's disturbing imagery in there. So, but if you're mature into more mature games, there's that you can look into. Of course, Voidling Bound was last week. I had some information about that last week. So let's move on to the free games. Oh my god, don't do that. We got 13 free games. One of them is, this isn't one of the free games. Stitchlings is one of the free games that you can get. You can go to Steam right now, get it. It's absolutely free to play. Another game that's free for now, I thought it originally was going to be free forever, is Dead by Daylight. It is free to play until June 20. I thought it was the 22nd, but they're saying, free to play until June 22nd. Let me switch my camera around here. But it's Dead by Daylight's 10th anniversary, if you can believe that. And so right now, if you haven't played it, check it out. I play regularly, so if you want to play, if you're new to it, reach out to me. We can play online. It's a lot of fun, but it's free to play right now until June 22nd. And it's on sale. So look at that. You can get the base game for $8. That's pretty much that's a deal. And it's on pretty much every platform now. Of course, this is for Steam. It's on Xbox, PC, PlayStation, even Nintendo Switch. Another free game you can get, and this is free to own forever, just go to Steam, and this is Prologue Go Way Back, and this is from Player Unknown. player unknown production. So it looks like a survival sim type thing, but it's completely free. So what do you got to lose? Nothing. Let's see. And there are 10 free games on the PlayStation Network. Just log into your PlayStation and search for this one I'm about to show you. Where'd it go? It is Lost Lands. Let me see if I can find that. I thought I had this up here. You go to the PlayStation Store, just look for Lost Lands. It's a point-and-click adventure game, but there's 10 of them. And if you're into that, and if you're into achievement hunting, then you can check that out. Just go to the PlayStation Network. You don't even have to have a subscription. Just log into PlayStation, go to the store, search for Lost Lands, and there's 10 different adventure games that you can get for free if you like that sort of thing. Let's see, what else? PC gaming stuff. So this is a big one. Is SteamOS 3.8 just dropped. And this is a big one. It's updated the Arch system base, so there is a lot of things, a lot of updates to the desktop. If you go into desktop mode, I think they have a new screenshotting utility. Overall, the the kernel's been updated. There are other little details about that. I'll go through the press release here in just a second. There's updates to the drivers, and the big thing, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is initial support for the upcoming Steam Machine hardware. There's a press embargo, and that's going to be lifted soon. So that means that the journalists that do have the Steam Machine will be able to talk about it next week. And when that happened, whenever there was a press embargo last time for the Steam controller, it was pretty much announced that day. So we could be seeing the announcement of the Steam Machine as early as next week. Valve has promised that they're going to be talking about it, that they're going to be releasing the Steam Machine in the summer of 2026. And it's around this time, everyone's expecting that the Steam Machine is going to be released within the next few weeks. This update also added support for Waking from Sleep from the Steam controller. It's made some games faster. Let's see, what else? There's so much information in this press release, I'm just going to skim through it. But you can look at the press release if you want. But a big 3.8 update for SteamOS. If you go to your Steam Deck, just search for the releases from the stable branch and you'll see that. Let's just go through here. Yeah, there's some fixes for certain titles that's great and everything, and Steam Deck controller firmware updates. Here we go. This is the thing that's some of the things that are going to impact the gamers. Updated graphics drivers. Added preliminary support for HDMI variable refresh rate for devices with a native HDMI output, like the Steam Machine does. The Steam Deck doesn't have a native HDMI output. It's through USB. So this is for devices that have a native HDMI output. Look at variable refresh rate fixes. Let me see. There's been some updates to Bluetooth and audio. Let's see. But yeah, okay, here we go. Desktop mode. This is what I was talking about. KDE Plasma, basically the graphical desktop environment that they're using in this implementation of Linux, has been updated to version 6.4.3. And so that fixes several things. There's going to be some additional features on the desktop mode. Better scaling. There's more screenshotting utilities. It's going to be faster. Improved windowing behavior. Yeah. So there's a bunch of a bunch of updates. 3.8 is a big update for the Steam Deck. Normally, I hesitate on getting minor updates for SteamOS because I'm a fan of Decky. And anytime that there is an update to anything, it seems like Decky breaks down. And a matter of fact, I did a video about how to fix Decky when it blows up, and you can't really predict when it happens because Decky is really just a hack, and like any hack, that's not going to last forever. So get the Steam OS 3.8. It's a big major revision, and if it does break Decky, it's worth it. Let's see. Oh, this is what I was talking about. This is all out of order. PlayStation drops 10 free games. This is what I was talking about. Lost Lands, Dark Overlord, Lost Lands, Four Horsemen. You can see the list right here of all the games that are dropping on PlayStation for free. Okay, so there's been an update for people who have been enjoying DualSense, like what I have here. I have one of the DualSense controllers. This is the DualSense Edge, or the Pro controller for the PlayStation. And there are some unique features of this that people enjoy even over the Steam controller. And now when you connect it to PC, you can have more functionality with your DualSense than you can with a PlayStation. And it supports some things that even the Steam controller won't do. And there is a program called DSX, and they have a plugin for DSX Plus, which now brings features that people have been looking for forever, or excuse me, for a while with their PlayStation controllers on PC, and that's audio over Bluetooth and haptics through Bluetooth. And I was testing it out, and I have a video coming out next week about this and getting this to work. But let me turn this on for a second. One of the things that I'm going to show you is, so you can see right now I'm controlling my mouse with my DualSense controller, which is something that I'll show you how to do. And on top of that, you can basically make your controller, you can go through all the trigger modes, but one of the coolest features is that you can make the haptics rumble with the audio input, which is something truly immersive when you're playing a game and you feel a rumble or a generator or something with low frequencies. You feel it in your hand, and it's kind of like one of these bass rumbling devices in home theater systems. And so I went through all the paces, and I'll show you how to do that. In this press release about DSX Plus, there's a lot that they don't tell you, which is why I have to have this video. One of the things, for example, is to do the DSX Plus, you have to go to the beta version. So what I did here, right now I'm on beta, but it wasn't intuitive. I just downloaded it. You have to go to Properties, go to Game Versions and Beta, and here you can select the public version or beta. And the beta is completely different from the regular version, even in its UI. So if that's something that you're interested in trying out and you want to get DSX and DSX Plus, make sure that you're on the beta version when you download it. And so there's a whole lot of configuration that you can do with haptics on the PC with a DualSense controller. And if you have a DualSense Edge, it's pretty much everything that you've ever wanted. It has true rumble, which is something that the Steam controller doesn't have. You have all this haptics. There's just a lot of stuff you can do with it with this software. It's probably going to be my favorite controller configuration, and I have a video coming out next week about that. Let's see, let me skip through this. Yeah, there's a couple things you can do with this setup that you can't do with the Steam controller itself. And I'll talk about that. Let's see, with PlayStation has revealed some new hardware. Let me find the press release on that. PlayStation officially unveils brand new hardware arriving sooner than expected. Let's see. One of the things that they're expected to release sooner is looks like a arcade joystick. It's called the Flex Strike wireless flight stick. They're going to be releasing a 27-inch gaming monitor with DualSense charging hook. And they're also going to be dropping a Pulse Elevate wireless speaker. So that's kind of interesting. Some of this other stuff is a little sensationalized. That there's some PlayStation 6 leaks. This is, I told myself I wasn't going to do sensationalized opinion pieces because I get heat for it, even though it's not my story. So forget I maybe even showed that to you. One thing that is interesting is PlayStation has patented a controller that can trap your fingers. You can look through this press release, but basically, one of the things they're trying to do, is to simulate some more immersion by trapping your fingers. Like if you're holding on to a thumb button, it can. Well, let's just read through this instead of me trying to explain it. Adaptive triggers are a novel idea. They can simulate the resistance of a trigger, the jamming of a gun, the weight of a bowstring, and the tension of a web line. However, PlayStation is looking to take it a step further with adaptive buttons. Here's some real positives to this concept. The patent emphasizes that the button can alter their hardness based on personal preference or gameplay. If you use an elbow, the button might soften so it requires less force to actuate, or harden to prevent accidental misclicks from a palm resting on it. So there's the finger grab effect, which is exactly what it sounds like. When grabbed in-game, the buttons would soften to let your fingers sink in and then harden around them, forcing you to pull yourself free. Sounds immersive. And they compare this to some of these gaming vests that simulate being shot. And so they give you these little punches on your chest when you're getting shot. So that is kind of interesting. But of course, not everything that is patented makes it to a final product. So, but it's interesting that is out in the world, that PlayStation or Sony has patented this technology. Let me close some of these tabs here. Getting a little cluttered up. Let's see, is our Yak? How you doing over there, Yak? Are you choking on all the news? Good boy. Let's see. Xbox has finally confirmed a Fallout 5 release, or a release update, I should say. Let's see. New report suggests that the Xbox CEO is planning to put more money behind Microsoft's biggest first-party franchises, including Halo and the Elder Scrolls. Who's involved in Fallout? Well, that's a whole big nothing burger. How is this a press release? Fallout 5 is coming. That's what that says. We'll go through. So there is an ominous warning about Xbox layoffs. Let me make this a little bigger. Xbox CEO reveals crucial Project Helix update amid component crisis. So the AI bubble, of course, has affected gamers because all of our favorite gaming devices have gotten a lot more expensive. And of course, this is Xbox earlier had to raise their prices. PlayStation raised their prices. This is part of the thing of the Steam machine as well, because we don't know what the price is going to be for that. Pricing for memory and SSDs has gone up, And so this is also affecting Xbox. And so there's been memos circulated around the company, and there's been rumors going around. There's an internal memo that basically people have to be on their best performance in order to keep their jobs. The memo said, we are currently unable to make as many Xboxes as players want to buy and need a new business model and partnerships for hardware as we remain committed to Helix. So there's good news that there is a Project Helix, but there's a tough update for console components. The memo said, we're in a hardware component crisis. When I joined as CEO in February, the price we paid for console storage components was over 2 times as high as we paid for last fall. The costs have since doubled again. So that's interesting. Microsoft had layoffs last year. Microsoft has frequently done layoffs, and it's interesting from what's kind of interesting is, like, last week there was a news article about the Elder Scrolls V, which ended up being a big nothing burger. They were just basically saying that Elder Scrolls V is in development and everyone at Bethesda is working on Elder Scrolls V. And I can believe that because there's nobody left at Bethesda. They gutted Bethesda. And so I know some people at Bethesda, if they're still there, and I actually have a copy of the Elder Scrolls Online that a lot of them were good enough to sign for me. So this is one of my most treasured possessions here. And so I have some strong opinions about Microsoft's layoffs and what they're doing to the gaming industry and people who work in the gaming industry. So when they say that everyone at Bethesda is working on Elder Scrolls V, I can believe it because there's nobody left. So let's see. Xbox has made some interesting decisions. Earlier this year, people weren't even sure if if Xbox was even going to be in the industry, if they were going to pull out, if they were going to be producing a new console, if they were going software only. Remember when they were saying this whole everything is an Xbox initiative? People were speculating that that Microsoft isn't going to do hardware anymore because previously the consoles, Microsoft would take a loss in order to sell games. And that is something that Valve couldn't do. That story segues into the Steam machine, in that Valve can't take a loss on hardware like some of the other companies can. So that's where we were thinking that the Steam machine is going to be at cost. Valve isn't looking to make a big profit. They want people to be able to play their games, but they can't take a big loss on them. Anyway, but that was what we were thinking when Microsoft was saying everything is an Xbox. Basically, they were trying to leverage the Xbox brand without having to actually have an Xbox console. Microsoft's done a lot of questionable things in the past year, like their Game Pass pricing. It seems like that they weren't really looking out for their loyal fan base. And I myself, as a big Xbox gamer, I would buy games on Xbox, even though I have press accounts and can get games for free. I would buy them on Xbox solely so I could get the gamer points for them. I was a loyal Xbox fan. And that's getting harder and harder to do. So I'm hoping that Microsoft does right by the gamers and they push forward and that they survive and everything's good and that there's some good games that come out from the developers and they treat the developers right. There is a 25th anniversary Xbox Series X. So let's play that. So I remember when the Xbox first came out, it was 2001, 25 years ago, and I wasn't sure I wanted one. I was a big PC gamer, and my wife got me an Xbox for Christmas, and it was one of the best things that I didn't know that I wanted. And so now it's the 25th anniversary of Xbox, so let's watch this trailer about the new Xbox Series X 25th Anniversary Edition. If it queues up. And of course I get an ad. Let's refresh this. Wow. Well, I'm not going to have any patience for this. I know you guys don't either. So, oh my God. Oh, that's funny. Xbox Series X25. That is hilarious. And they showed Gears of War there too. And so there are some advantages of living in the Seattle area. One of them was that I got to go to the Gears of War 2 release party and actually got to meet Bill Gates again. I've met him a couple of times, but shook his hand. I actually have the video of that release party in the OCmodcast clips channel. So it's kind of interesting. So what else is going on? Everyone wants to know, when is the Steam machine coming out? And I was talking about this a few minutes ago about when there was the SteamOS 3.8 earlier this week, and that there was support added to the new Steam machine that's coming up, or the upcoming Steam machine, as they said. Valve has said that they're going to be releasing it the summer of 2026, which puts it between June and July, which is just around the corner. Let's look at the specifications. There's been a lot of hype around this, and I've been kind of mum on it because there's a lot of speculation about this, a lot of speculation about the price. There's been a lot of people have comments about the hardware. I've heard people say that it's underpowered, that this is even though that this is a Zen 4, it's 6 cores, 12 threads, which it seems like on paper it's more powerful than a PlayStation 5, but the PlayStation 5, which is Zen 2, has 8 cores. So but in realistic terms, the PlayStation 5 is more powerful. This Steam machine, even though it has 6 cores, 12 threads, it has 16 gigabytes of memory and dedicated GPU memory. So there's 16 gigabyte DDR5 plus an additional 8 gigabytes GDDR6 VRAM, which is a little different than the Steam Deck in that there's 16 gigabytes of just unified memory across the board. So the system dynamically allocates memory between the system and graphics. So it can be a 8x8 split or a 12x4. It just depends on the game. But in one of the articles that I wrote about, is 16 gigabytes of RAM good enough for PC gaming? That was one of the topics, is like, if you have a dedicated GPU, then yes. One of the things that's interesting about that article, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is I had a surprising revelation that when I added more RAM to my system, I took like a 25% frame rate cut. And you'll have to watch that video to see why that happens. So in 16 gigabytes of RAM, in some cases, I would get the same performance as 64 gigabytes of RAM, but when I used 32 gigabytes of RAM, my frame rate would get cut by a lot, and it was a noticeable performance difference. And that just wasn't in one game, that was in several games. And so there's the way that you have your system configured that can really cut your losses or cut your frame rate down. One of the things is how your system's configured is, do you have a dedicated video card? Is it shared? Do you have an APU? What is your memory configuration like? Things like that. But people have been saying that there's been a lot of talk about the Steam machine and that it's not going to be powerful enough. People saying, oh, this is hardware that's a couple of years old and it's coming out now and it's going to be pricier than it was and all that sort of thing. This is still targeting what most people are using on Steam. If you look at what the average player is playing, what the average hardware is, people are playing at 1080p, and this is still going to be a good machine that's going to run a lot of things. And you can do some really neat tricks like you can do with the Steam Deck to get games running well. And I think this is going to force publishers to optimize their games, because a low-powered machine like the Steam Deck, for example, there are some games that run phenomenally well on them when they're well optimized. One of the things that come to mind is Resident Evil Requiem. It runs really well. It's a AAA new game that runs really good on the Steam Deck because it's well optimized. And there's a few games like that. But of course, there are some games that run horrible and you have to do some major tweaking to get them to work. But I'm not saying that the Steam machine, you're going to have to do a lot of tweaking, but the critics that say that this isn't powerful enough for gaming, it's going to be just fine. Will it fit? The people who are criticizing it, it's like, are people who have elite PCs anyway. Like I have a doozy of a system that'll play any PC game that I want at 120 frames a second plus. It'll sneeze at 120 frames a second, but I'm still going to get a Steam machine. And I actually, and it may be that the Steam machine is hard to get. And it just depends on what your needs are and what games you want to play. And so I have already already put out some videos about making your own Steam machine out of spare parts, an old computer, or a Goodwill salvage. So depending on what you have and what you want to play, you can make your own Steam machine. That's one of the things about the Steam machine and Steam Deck over just a Windows PC is its appliance-like nature. It's set up like a console, but it also gives you the power to tweak it if you want to. But you can just turn, once you have a Steam machine, a DIY Steam machine, once you have it set up, you just sit down on your couch, hook up a controller, and start playing. It's that easy. And you can do one yourself with some older hardware. You can make your own Steam machine for $0 if you have old hardware laying around that'll play games just fine. I've segued off way too much. Let's see. Videos this week. We released some things this week. Let me refresh here. So one video that just dropped today, probably like 15 minutes ago, is how to fix hidden windows. So if you've ever, so I'll just simulate what I mean here. It's like, oh, where did my window go? My desktop, it's not there. I see it in the taskbar, but where is it? So this is something that's actually plagued people for literally generations. I used to do desktop support just various companies. I'd have to go to people's desks and people would lose their windows. It would be in their taskbar and they couldn't find it. And so I had to recover their window for them. Some people even went the nuclear option and uninstalled and reinstalled the program, like Office, for example. A common thing is people try to open up Word and it wouldn't appear, even though it was in their task manager. They just couldn't find it. And some people would uninstall Office and reinstall it. And back in the mid-90s, Office came on 27 floppy disks. So installing Office for someone was literally an entire afternoon, and that's just because they couldn't find their window. So if you want to know the trick on how to fix that and how to prevent it from happening again, if it does happen to you, check out that video. And as I was talking about before, I did a big, long, high effort video of comparing 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes, and 64 gigabytes of RAM in your gaming setup. And the results were actually kind of shocking. I ran into a situation where when I would get a decent frame rate with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and when I used 32 gigabytes, I would have a lot less frames per second. My performance would be cut drastically by adding more RAM, which seems counterintuitive. So if you want to know about that, I test 10 different games, and it's kind of a long thing, but there's chapters you can skip through it, but there's lessons learned at the end. It's not just a matter of just tweaking your system. It's answers the question, is 16 gigabytes of RAM good enough for gaming? Do you need more than that? And why, and what are the considerations for that? So go check that out. And last week there was a setup game changer article that I put out, and that's one of the, it's getting a lot of traction, and I think that's a lot of people are getting a lot of good value out of that. Some of the other, let me look through here. Let's see. Next week, so one of the things that happened at our office is that I changed our office to get our NAS out of my office and into our bedroom closet. We hired an electrician to wire up our closet with Ethernet and electricity. And so I took the opportunity to show not only how to wire that up and move the NAS in there, but also how to wire up Ethernet jacks. And so that is coming out next week. So stay tuned for that. And as I alluded to earlier, I've been playing with the DualSense controller using DSX and DSX Plus, and so I'll have that tutorial coming out next week. It's not just a matter of how to use DSX, but how to avoid a lot of the pitfalls of configuring it, because there are some headaches with that. But I'll show you how to control your Windows desktop with it. So you can do a lot of the things that the Steam controller does, and matter of fact, do some things that the Steam controller can't do with your DualSense. And I would recommend a DualSense Edge, like the one I have here, because you can have trigger depth, adjustable trigger depth, profiles, lots of other little nifty little things, changeable key joysticks, paddles. Whoops, and I just dropped my thing because I didn't click it down far enough. But I would recommend that. But the DSX software works with that and natively works with the DualSense Edge controller. So look out for that next week. So I also found that a portion of my audience is new to computers. We're all about computers and gaming handhelds and gaming, but there are people would benefit from explaining computers, even at a basic level. So I'm going to be creating some computer learning courses. I mean, as simple as, what is a computer? Because I found that people want to know about that. So not only to teach about computers, but and how to use them, but focus on skills that you need to get a job. You would think that computer skills and basic computer skills are pretty much commonplace nowadays, but that's not necessarily true. So I'm working on a series of computer courses. So look out for that. So it is also Retroware Friday. So this is the segment of the show where I go over some things that we reviewed at OCmodcast before, and we came across some weird, odd, interesting things. And I want to show some of these things to you. I will start off with this. What you see here, like, oh, it just looks like a normal stick of RAM. And you'd be right. But there's 3 of them. This was one kit that had 3 sticks of RAM in it. Why would there be 3 sticks of RAM? Well, there was a time when we had triple channel memory. I had an i7 920 or 970, but it used triple channel. It had 3 banks of RAM. And so these are 1 gigabyte sticks each. And so for a total of 3 gigabytes. But this was back in like 2009 or 2010 when people weren't even reaching the 4 gigabyte limit. So nowadays, 4 gigabytes would be bare minimum, runs like a donkey. So now I think 8 gigabytes is barely passable. But this was triple channel RAM. And so I had mine decked out with 12 gigabytes of RAM, and this was back in the day when 4 was overkill. Where I'm illustrating here, why I'm mentioning this is because I would think that the natural evolution would be to have quad channel RAM. And that does exist. Quad channel RAM does exist, but it's reserved for extreme enthusiasts and servers. Like the AMD Threadripper has quad channel RAM. Some of the extreme Intel servers and performance motherboards do quad channel RAM. But it wasn't too long ago that just an enthusiast motherboard had triple channel RAM, and it wasn't uncommon. And so, but now when you configure your system, you can do single channel or dual channel, and depending on which RAM slots you plug them in could determine if you're in single channel or dual channel mode. Well, it was even more critical then. You had 3 banks, and if you set it up wrong, then you could be doing in single channel mode. But anyway, this is triple channel RAM, and I like the photography here. I loved my little studio. I took some good photos there, and this is with a really crappy by today's standards camera. And so you can take really good photos with just about any camera if you invest in good cheap lighting. I think the whole lighting kit I had, it was really cheap. It was like $80, but it allows you to take some good photos. Anyway, it's not that the RAM CSX Diablo, who's ever heard of that? It's not that CSX is weird or anything. Is that triple channel RAM was a thing. This here is an MDVA. It's a visual audio. Basically, this is a thing that you put in your 5 1/4 inch bay. I kind of wish that we had more 5 1/4 inch bay cases, not because we need to put DVD drives in them, but we could have visualizations in them. And this is something that hooked up to your sound card, usually through the back. And I'll show you this. It was just an LED array. It was a circular thing. So these LEDs would light up just like any VU meter, would be green at the bottom and then go to yellow and then red. I don't have any pictures of this working, but see, there's some little knobs here where you can adjust the sensitivity and all that sort of thing. But it was a neat little thing, and it flashed through this smoky acrylic on the front. It was a neat little effect. So that was just kind of neat. I wish I had some photos of that working. But anyway, here is my piece de resistance, my Chenming case. Let me find the outside of it. I don't think I have it. So anyway, this was a Chenming case. A lot of people had this type of case back in the day. There were different manufacturers, basically the same case. This was an all aluminum case. It was roomy. It had a front door, lockable front door to protect the 5 1/4 drive bays. It had exhaust in the back, and this was just one of my favorite cases. I tricked this out. I think here this is a GeForce 4, but I put on a Zalman passive heatsink on this one. So the heatsink was so big. There's a top and a bottom heatsink that's sandwiched between the cards, and they're connected with a heat pipe. And it was more than enough to keep everything cool without a fan on it. And so that was one of my favorite things. And there is a Zalman flower cooler on top of, I'm not even sure what processor this is. It might be an Athlon XP. But I had, of course, RGB lights with fan grills and my custom power supply that I added a window to. Let me go through the beginning here. I thought I had pictures of the outside. Oh yeah, cold cathodes. Okay, this is going to be a treat. There's the Zalman cooler, flower cooler. This one was a copper one. There's the Zalman heatsink. Yeah, there's the side of the case. And so I had the exhaust fan with the biohazard. So here's the acrylic case, or acrylic window that I cut out. I cut out the side of the power supply, etched this in. What's interesting here, one of the things I did is I got some custom Molex connectors and threaded them up so that they weren't doing this popping out here. It was just a straight line down in series. And yeah, there's a close-up of that. So just the Molex connector just going straight to the hard drive. There's the biohazard grill, fan grill. There's the power supply. There was nothing to write home about. This is probably like a 300 watt power supply. But yeah, I wanted to show the outside of that case. I have pictures of that somewhere. But anyway, that was my Chenming case. And it was a case basically everybody had back in the day when we were doing computer mods. And that case lighting today, people are doing RGB. And matter of fact, my motherboard actually has support for case lighting so that you can control it through software. But back then we had cold cathodes, which is basically just a light strip that you'd put in. And that's was case modding back in the day. Let's see. Yeah, the MDA visualizers, the Diablo memory. Let's see. When I was about 10 years old, I started on my computer journalism journey. I started a long time ago. My dad got me and my brother an Atari 400 computer, and I did a presentation on explaining Atari computers and how they worked. And my mom was one of my biggest cheerleaders. I ended up winning first place. One of the things I learned about humility and being a good sport was I actually thought that I lost. And they presented me with a ribbon, and I didn't understand what the colors of the ribbons meant. And I actually won first place, and I thought I won second. So I was trying to be a gracious loser. And then after I left, my mom told me that I won first place. And again, I didn't understand. So that's one of the things that I'm was reminded about when I'm starting a series of learning computers for beginners. My mom would be proud, and her heavenly birthday is tomorrow. So thank you guys for sticking with me and all of your support. And look out for the new stuff coming out next week. I'm very proud and pleased that you invite me into your homes and that you let me show you, let me share with you my love of computers and allow me to teach you. It's a great honor of mine. So thank you very much. And I'm going to sign off, and I will see you guys next week for episode 7. Thank you very much.